Hello and welcome to this Anacta Thomas Facts and Date Royal video. Now today we're going to be talking about a lady who would become the Queen of Hanover. Her name was Frederica, and she was born in March 1778. Now, she was born over in Germany. She had a large family, her parents, and she had a number of brothers and sisters, and like most noble and small royal families over in Germany, she grew up and she had lessons and an education that was befitting for a future royal, be it in a small, relatively court, or be it a bigger court around Europe. Anyway, like I say, she spent a number of years living a life that would be suitable for a young princess of the age. When she got a little bit older, her parents wanted the best for their children, of course, like all parents. So her parents arranged a marriage between herself and a son of the Kingdom of Prussia, which of course was the main sort of big family of the German royals. And so she married Prince Louis Charles of Prussia. And from what I've been able to read, the marriage was not exactly wanted by both, and they were finally married on the 26th of December 1793. Now, over that period of time during their marriage, they did have a few children. I'm not going to list them because I can't remember all the names, but I will put a list here. Like I said, obviously, they were married for a few years. So, like I said, even though they had children, it was not a happy marriage. It was they barely saw each other because of him being away, either doing royal duties or in the military. And when he was at home, it was said that he spent more time with his mistresses than he ever did with his wife. Now, her first husband, Prince Louis, died only 3 years after marriage in 1796. Now, that obviously shook her. It affected her quite badly, and obviously, knowing that she'd only had a few years of marriage and that her children were still very young, needed to be looked after, which means that she reacquainted herself with her family and external family members, being, of course, also being connected to the British royal family at the time as well, through the Hanoverians. Now, obviously she made contact with a couple of her British cousins, one being the future Prince Regent, Prince of Wales, and of course her future third husband, the future Duke of Cumberland. Now, but before that happened, she meets her second husband. I say she met her second husband. What really happened was, it is said that they had started an affair, and she became pregnant, and to avoid a scandal, the man, who is named Frederick William something, I'm going to put it there because I can't pronounce it, and they got married before the child was born. Now, this of course was I say a mistake. It wasn't really a mistake. It was down to the fact that it was a a relationship that was obviously originally out of lust and out of attraction, but of course it didn't last very long, and that soon after the marriage and the birth of their child, it became quite clear that it was done out of duty, not out of love. Now, over that period of time, during their marriage, they did have a few children. Also, the child did die after only a few months after birth. This, of course, probably was another reasoning behind the hastening of the end of this relationship. Now, going back to what I was talking about earlier on, her third husband, who of course was Prince Ernest, the fifth son of King George the Third of Great Britain. And like I said, they are related. And what I can say to you is quite simply that once it became clear that the Prince Regent, as he was then, only legitimate daughter, Princess Charlotte, had died after giving birth, and her only being the only legitimate child that could be passed the crown down to, all of the unmarried brothers of the Prince Regent / Prince of Wales had to go off and get married and produce a legitimate heir. And Ernest's mother did not like the fact that Ernest had chosen Frederica as a potential wife. Not only because obviously she didn't like the fact she'd been married twice, she'd had a few children by this point, and that obviously she in many ways wasn't really suitable to be a member of the British royal family. And so unfortunately there was a rift between mother and son, and because of that, a straining of the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, frankly down to the fact that the Queen Charlotte refused to go to the wedding, and she never really accepted her daughter-in-law until, well, right up to when she dies, which was 1818. Now, anyway, obviously, over the period of their marriage, which they got married in May 1815, they get married in Germany, and then a few weeks later they get married over here in England, being obviously her family were all over in Germany, so they got married for them, and obviously when they got married over here in the UK for all of his family to be there. And one of the things that they said actually after the marriage was the simple fact of the matter being that the Queen Charlotte did suggest to her son Ernest that maybe it would be best to leave Britain and go and move over to Germany, where obviously it was cheaper to live, and it was kind of there wasn't going to be any real big effect on the British royal family what happens in this marriage, because obviously being so far down the line, nothing was going to really go anywhere near him. How wrong she really was. Anyway, going back to this, they had over the period of their marriage, they had 3 pregnancies that we know of. Unfortunately, a daughter died very soon after birth, on the same day, I believe. Another daughter was born, but was born still a stillbirth, and then their only surviving child, which was a boy called Prince George, of course, who became Prince George of Cumberland. Now, jumping ahead a little bit, because this was a very happy, well, it seemed to be a very happy marriage. There didn't seem to be any call for a separation, which had happened on some of the other marriages of their elder siblings. And like I said, obviously it was the longest lasting of Frederica's marriages. And obviously when in 1830 and their eldest brother George became King George the fourth, obviously things became a little bit more 1820, sorry, and in 1830 when he dies, obviously things started to get a little bit more interesting, down to the fact that obviously the next brother, Prince Frederick, the Duke of York, had recently died as well. William, the Duke of Clarence, he was obviously the next in line in that respect, so he became King William the Fourth. And then their next brother would have been the Duke of Kent, and when William dies in 1837, there is a problem, because the Hanoverian laws state that that a woman cannot sit in as her own right as the Queen of Hanover. There had to be the splitting of the Hanoverian to the British throne, since the creating of this union right back with George I. Now, so when Victoria becomes Queen, they need to find the next male legitimate person who would become King of Hanover. And that became Frederica's husband, the Duke of Cumberland, who became King Ernest, King of Hanover. And they left and moved over to Germany. And over the years, obviously they occasionally came back and everything like that, and they made a life for themselves over in Hanover, and they tried their best to. It became very clear, I think, that it was a very much a backward steps in her opinion, particularly the idea that obviously she'd spent all of her childhood and the first two marriages that she had over in Germany. She felt that she had escaped Germany in that respect, because when once she'd left Germany to get married to Ernest, she did not expect to be returning to the country of her birth. And anyway, she then really obviously she kind of got herself involved, especially with the fact that her husband was the king of this kingdom, and she tried to make the best of it. But obviously, I believe very much that she was very much kind of the power behind the throne, in the respect that she wanted to try and influence politics over in England with towards her niece Victoria, and very much the fact that her husband believed that he should be the rightful king of England as well, not Victoria. And so in many ways they became quite spiteful in that respect of the wanting to get that power. Anyway, like I say, throughout their time over there, they obviously their son, also George, moved over to Germany as well with them, and he became a bit more. There was a bit of a push, particularly by Frederica, to maybe marry their son George to Victoria, and that idea was floated a little bit towards the British Parliament, but obviously that didn't happen in the end. But like I said, obviously after obviously when they've been together and they seem relatively happy, and they lived off the rest of their lives in Germany, and they, like I say, they occasionally came over to the UK to see family, but the majority of the rest of their lives they lived over in Germany. And she obviously, like I say, she lived quite a few years. She actually lived until she was 63, which at that time was actually quite a reasonably decent age, I suppose. Which, and like I say, she was able to see her son grow up, and like I say, obviously she knew for a fact that he was never going to have any power in England, but she knew for a fact he could have the power over in Hanover, which when she dies in 1840, when is it, 1840? June 1841, she leaves that kingdom actually in quite good standing, really. It's quite well respected at that time. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it's been interesting for you. I hope it's given you a little bit more information about this woman that on the outside of it could be classed as being quite boring. I hope I've helped you understand her a little bit more. I hope it's given you a little bit more interest to go off and do maybe a bit more research for yourselves. If you know something more about this lady than I don't, please leave a comment down below and help me learn more. I always think it's very interesting if I get emails and messages and comments from people saying, did you know this or did you know that? And I'm always very interested in finding out new pieces of information, so thank you very much for people that do that. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like or a comment or a subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you listen to my podcast that me and my friend Andrew do, called Earth Orange. It's up every Monday. There is it's quite humorous. Like I say, give it a listen if you haven't heard of it, if you haven't heard from it before. And I hope you have a wonderful week, like I say. And as I do at the end of everything I do, I give you a little salute and say goodbye. Goodbye.